Commander Lisa Grant stood at the observation window of the patrol vessel and watched the stars drift past in silence. She had served in space for 15 years now, ever since humanity first earned its place among the elder races of the Galactic Collective. It was not much of a place, she knew. Humans were tolerated more than respected, allowed to serve but never to lead, permitted to exist but always watched with careful eyes. The door behind her opened, and she turned to see Park entering the observation deck. He was young, barely 25 years old, but he had a gift for understanding alien technology that few humans possessed. His dark eyes carried a worried look that Lisa had seen too often lately. "You heard the announcement," said. "It was not a question." Lisa nodded slowly. The message had come through official channels just 3 hours ago. All human personnel serving in the collective military would receive neural compliance implants within the next 30 days. It was described as a necessary step toward full integration, a sign of trust and advancement. Lisa knew better than to believe such words. "Every other species has them," she said quietly. "They say it ensures loyalty and prevents conflict within the ranks." Moved to stand beside her at the window. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about Earth's history, about times when people tried to control other people through force and fear. She said it never worked forever." Lisa smiled sadly. "Your grandmother was wise, but we are not on Earth anymore. Out here, we play by their rules or we do not play at all." The Galactic Collective had maintained order among the stars for 50,000 years. 12 elder races governed a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds. Humanity had been spacefaring for only 3 centuries, a child among ancient giants. When the collective offered membership, Earth's leaders had accepted without hesitation. The alternative was isolation in a universe that had no patience for those who stood alone. 3 days later, Lisa found herself summoned to a meeting aboard the collective command station. The chamber was vast and cold, built to accommodate species of many different sizes. At the far end sat High Arbiter, leader of the people. They were the most powerful race in the collective, tall and slender beings with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed to look through everything they observed. "Commander Grant," said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "you have served the collective faithfully for many years. Your record shows dedication and competence." Lisa bowed her head respectfully. "Thank you, High Arbiter. The implantation program will begin tomorrow. You will be among the first to receive the device as befits your rank." Paused and studied her face. "You seem troubled." Lisa chose her words carefully. "I am honored by this opportunity to demonstrate humanity's commitment to the collective." Made a sound that might have been laughter, a diplomatic answer. "Your species is learning." He waved one long hand in dismissal. "Report to the medical bay at dawn." As Lisa left the chamber, she passed in the corridor. He was a young officer assigned to observe human crew members, though everyone knew observation meant surveillance. Nodded to her with an expression she could not read. That night, Lisa gathered the human personnel aboard the station in a private meeting room. There were 47 of them, men and women who had left Earth to serve among the stars. They looked to her for guidance, for answers she did not have. "We all know what these implants do," said Dr. Cole, the ship's medical officer. She was a small woman with hair and steady hands. "They create a compulsion to obey. Every species in the collective has them. It is how they maintain control." "It is how they prevent wars," said Gary, the communications officer. He was always the optimist among them. 50,000 years of peace is not nothing." Shook his head. 50,000 years of obedience is not peace, it is just quiet." Lisa raised her hand for silence. "We do not have a choice in this matter. Refusing would mean exile from the collective, and humanity cannot survive alone out here. We accept the implants. We continue to serve. And we trust that being human means something, even with a device in our heads." The implantation ceremony took place in a sterile white chamber filled with medical equipment Lisa did not recognize. She lay on a table while technicians worked around her, their instruments humming with energy. The procedure was painless, just a brief pressure at the base of her skull and then nothing. When she woke, Lisa felt exactly the same as before. She moved her fingers, turned her head, thought her private thoughts. Nothing seemed different. She wondered if that was how it was supposed to feel. Across the station, thousands of other humans underwent the same procedure. Was among the last, his technical knowledge making him too valuable to risk with the early batches. When he emerged from the medical bay, he found Lisa waiting for him. "How do you feel?" she asked. Touched the back of his neck where a small scar marked the implant's location. "Like myself, is that wrong?" Before Lisa could answer, a technician approached them with it in hand. His expression was carefully neutral, but something in his posture suggested confusion. "Commander Grant, Specialist Park, your readings require additional analysis. Please report to the secondary medical bay for follow-up examination." Lisa and exchanged a look but followed without protest. In the secondary medical bay, they found Dr. Cole already present, studying a display screen with intense concentration. "What is happening?" Lisa asked. Turned to face them, and her eyes held something Lisa had not expected to see: hope. "Your implants are active," said softly, "but your brain activity patterns are not responding the way they should. The compliance protocols are registering, but they are not taking hold." Stepped closer to the screen. "What does that mean?" Glanced at the door to ensure they were alone. "It means that whatever these implants do to other species, they may not do the same thing to us. Your minds are not accepting the programming." In a chamber high above them, reviewed the same data with very different feelings. He had suspected for years that humans were too unpredictable, too chaotic, too dangerous to be trusted with freedom. The implants were supposed to solve that problem, to bring humanity under proper control like every other species before them. But the numbers on his screen told a troubling story. Human neural patterns were not conforming. The implants were functional but ineffective, like trying to chain a river with paper bonds. "Increase monitoring of all human personnel," ordered his aide, "and prepare contingency protocols. If these creatures cannot be controlled, we will need another solution." The stars continued their eternal drift outside the station windows, indifferent to the small drama unfolding within. Lisa Grant looked out at those distant lights and wondered what tomorrow would bring. She did not know that she had just become the first human to resist 50,000 years of collective control, or that her resistance was only the beginning. 3 months passed since the implantation ceremony, and life aboard the collective vessels settled into familiar routines. Lisa Grant continued her duties as commander, leading patrols and filing reports, and attending endless meetings with officers who looked at humans the way one might look at trained animals. She smiled when expected, followed orders when given, and kept her secrets buried deep. The Third Fleet assembled near the border of collective space on a cold morning by ship time. Admiral commanded from the flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Law. Was a species known for their calculating minds and complete lack of emotional attachment. His skin and multiple eyes gave him an appearance that humans found deeply unsettling, though Lisa had learned to hide her reactions years ago. The mission briefing took place in the flagship's war room. 50 officers of various species stood at attention, while explained the situation in his flat, mechanical voice. "The colony world of 4 has refused to pay required tributes to the collective for 3 consecutive cycles. Their leaders have organized resistance and spread dangerous ideas about independence. We will restore order." Lisa listened with growing unease. She had heard stories about how the collective restored order. The compliance implants made soldiers follow any command without question, no matter how terrible. She had always been grateful that humans were kept away from such operations. Until now. Human troops will lead the ground assault, continued. They will secure the colonial government building and execute the resistance leaders as an example to others. The words hit Lisa like a physical blow. She felt stiffen beside her, felt the shock ripple through every human in the room. Execute civilians. That was the order, and the implants were supposed to make them obey without hesitation. Lisa waited for the compulsion to take hold. She remembered what had told her about the implants, how they should create an irresistible urge to follow commands from superior officers. She braced herself for the loss of her own will. Nothing happened. She felt a mild discomfort, like a headache forming behind her eyes, but her thoughts remained her own. Her hands did not move toward her weapon. Her feet did not carry her toward the transport bay. She simply stood there, fully aware of the horror of what she had been ordered to do and fully capable of refusing. Commander Grant's multiple eyes focused on her. You will lead the human assault team. Departure in 1 hour. Lisa forced her voice to remain steady. Understood, Admiral. The hour that followed was the longest of her life. She gathered her human soldiers in a private section of the transport bay, 20 men and women who looked at her with confusion and fear. They had all felt it, or rather, they had all failed to feel it. The compulsion that should have overwhelmed their resistance simply was not there. What do we do? Asked a young soldier named Danny. He was barely 20 years old, a pilot who had dreamed of exploring the stars. Now he faced the prospect of becoming a murderer. Answered before Lisa could speak. We pretend. We follow the orders to the surface, we secure the building, and then we find reasons to delay. Equipment failures, communication problems, anything to buy time. And then what? Danny pressed. They will know something is wrong. They will figure out the implants do not work on us. Lisa put her hand on the young man's shoulder. Then we face that moment when it comes. But right now, we do not kill innocent people. That is not who we are. The assault went exactly as planned, at least on the surface. Human troops landed on 4, secured the government building, and took the resistance leaders into custody. But somehow the execution kept getting delayed. First, there was a communication failure with the flagship. Then the human weapons experienced a strange malfunction. Then the prisoners needed medical attention before they could be properly displayed for public execution. Admiral watched the reports with growing suspicion. His species did not feel anger the way others did, but they recognized patterns. The pattern here was clear. Every delay involved human personnel. Every complication originated with human equipment. And every excuse sounded just plausible enough to avoid direct accusation. Summon ordered. Arrived within minutes, his blue features arranged in careful neutrality. He had been observing humans for years and understood their ways better than most of his kind. You have noticed the anomalies, said. It was not a question. Turned his multiple eyes toward the younger officer. The human implants, they are not functioning correctly. I have suspected as much for some time. Pulled up data on a display screen. Their neural activity patterns do not match any other implanted species. The compliance protocols activate but fail to override their natural decision-making processes. They are defective. Consider the word carefully. Or they are simply different. Human brains evolved under conditions unlike any other species in the collective. Their neural plasticity is extraordinary. Their immune systems treat foreign objects as threats to be eliminated. Meanwhile, on the surface of 4, Lisa made contact with Cole through a secure channel that had established using equipment that did not know he had modified. I examined 3 of our soldiers after the landing, reported. The implants are being slowly rejected by their bodies. Human immune response is treating the devices as infections to be fought. Within 6 months, most of the implants will be completely non-functional. Lisa closed her eyes and let the information settle. So we cannot be controlled. Not now, not ever. Not with this technology. Human minds are simply not compatible with collective compliance systems. We evolved to resist external control at a biological level. Leaned in close to the communicator. That should be good news, but I do not think the collective will see it that way. He was right. Within hours, submitted his report to High Arbiter. The transmission was encrypted at the highest level, but had long ago learned to intercept such messages. He played the recording for Lisa in the darkness of a storage room, their faces lit only by the glow of his. His flat voice filled the small space. The human troops refused to execute the prisoners, not openly, but through deliberate obstruction. Their implants are failing to produce standard compliance responses. Recommend immediate investigation and potential removal of all humans from sensitive operations. His reply came cold and measured. Proceed with the mission. Execute the prisoners yourself if necessary. I will handle the human problem personally. Lisa and looked at each other in the dim light. They both understood what those words meant. The collective had spent 50,000 years controlling every species under its rule. They would not tolerate one that could not be controlled. We need to warn the others, Lisa said quietly. Nodded, I already have. The network is ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together. On the surface below, the colonial resistance leaders remained alive in their cells, unaware that their salvation had come from the most unexpected source. The humans who were supposed to kill them had simply refused, not through grand rebellion, but through the quiet resistance of minds that could not be chained. The command station orbiting Prime was the heart of the Galactic Collective. From its gleaming halls, the 12 elder races had governed 1,000 worlds for 50,000 years. Nothing happened in collective space without the knowledge of those who walked these corridors. And now, for the first time something had happened that they did not understand. Chief Scientist stood in the center of his laboratory, surrounded by displays showing human neural patterns. He was ancient even by collective standards, a being of the species whose crystalline body pulsed with slow inner light. He had studied every intelligent species known to the galaxy. None had ever confused him the way humans did. Bring the subject, commanded. 2 guards entered with Captain Ben between them. Ben was a career officer in his 40s, a man who had served with distinction for 20 years. Now he was a prisoner, selected for examination because his implant showed the most severe rejection response of any human tested. Ben stood straight despite his restraints. His eyes met without fear. You are not afraid, observed. Would fear help my situation? Ben replied. No, but most subjects in your position cannot help themselves. The survival instinct produces predictable responses. Gestured to an examination table. Lie down, this will not be painful. Ben, though he trusted the promise of painlessness about as much as he trusted anything else in this place. The examination lasted 3 hours, took samples, ran scans, and monitored responses to various stimuli. Through it all, Ben remained silent and cooperative. When it was finished, stood motionless for a long time, processing what he had learned. Your species is remarkable, he finally said. Ben sat up slowly. Is that a compliment? It is a statement of fact. Every other species in the collective evolved for group survival. Their brains developed to prioritize collective needs over individual desires. The compliance implants simply enhance what already exists. Its crystalline form flickered with inner light. But humans evolved differently. Your ancestors survived through individual adaptation, through resistance to external pressures, through a stubbornness that borders on biological imperative. You are saying we are too stubborn to control. I am saying that your brains are designed to reject control at a fundamental level. The implants work on every other species because those species already possess neural pathways for collective compliance. Humans do not have such pathways. Your minds treat the implants as attacks and fight them accordingly. In the council chamber above, High Arbiter receives report with cold fury. The other council members sat in their designated positions, representatives of all 12 elder races. Some looked concerned. Others looked thoughtful. Council member of the species looked almost pleased, though he hid it well. The humans cannot be controlled through standard methods, summarized. This is unacceptable. For 50,000 years, the compliance system has maintained peace and order. We cannot allow one species to exist outside that system. Perhaps the system is the problem, said quietly. Every eye in the chamber turned toward him. Was old even among the elder races, a being who remembered times before the collective existed. He had always questioned the compliance technology, though he had never before spoken against it openly. The system has prevented wars and ensured cooperation, another council member argued. Without it, we would return to the chaos of ancient times. Would we, leaned forward, or have we simply forgotten how to cooperate without being forced? The humans serve alongside us. They follow orders. They contribute to our missions. They do all of this without functional compliance implants. Perhaps they prove that willing cooperation is possible. Cut off the discussion with a sharp gesture. The humans are confined to quarters until we determine a permanent solution. I will not debate philosophy while a security threat remains unaddressed. The order went out across the collective fleet within the hour. All human personnel were to report to designated holding areas. No exceptions, no explanations, just confinement until further notice. Lisa Grant received the order aboard her patrol vessel and felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had known this moment would come eventually. She had simply hoped for more time. "What do we do?" asked. He stood at her side as always, his young face showing the fear he tried so hard to hide. "We comply," Lisa said. "For now, fighting back would only prove their fears about us." The humans gathered in the cargo bay that had been designated as their holding area. 47 men and women sat on the cold metal floor, surrounded by guards of various species who watched them with weapons ready. Lisa looked at their faces and saw confusion, anger, and underneath it all, a quiet determination that no implant could have created. Hours passed, then a day, then another. Cole used the time to examine more humans, confirming what they already suspected. Every single implant was failing. Human immune systems were winning the slow battle against the foreign technology. On the second night, managed to establish a secure communication link with Ben aboard the command station. The connection was brief, barely 30 seconds before security protocols detected the signal. "They know everything," Ben said quickly. "Figured it out. Our brains reject the implants because we evolved to resist control. They are discussing what to do with us. Some want to develop stronger implants. Others want us removed from the collective entirely. Want something worse. I can see it in how he looks at us." "What do we do?" asked. Ben's voice came through strained but steady. "Lisa will know. Tell her that cooperation built on trust is stronger than obedience built on technology. Tell her that we are the proof." The connection died. Sat in the darkness of the cargo bay and relayed the message to Lisa. She listened without interruption, her eyes fixed on some distant point that only she could see. "He is right," she finally said. "They fear us because we cannot be controlled, but we can show them that control was never necessary. We can prove that humans can be trusted not because we have no choice, but because we choose to be trustworthy. And if they do not believe us—" Lisa met his eyes with a look that carried the weight of her years and the burden of her responsibility. "Then we make them believe, whatever it takes." Above them, finalized his plans. The collective would make an example of one human vessel, a single ship destroyed as a demonstration of what happened to those who existed outside the system. The other humans would fall in line, or they would share the same fate. He did not understand that humans had never fallen in line because of fear. He did not understand that threatening them would only strengthen their resolve. He had studied many species in his long life, but he had never encountered anything like the stubborn, defiant, impossibly free creatures called humanity. He was about to learn. The confinement of human personnel created problems that the collective had not anticipated. Across the fleet, critical systems began to malfunction. Communication arrays lost efficiency. Medical bays reported equipment failures. Navigation computers showed unexpected errors. The 12 elder races had spent centuries integrating humans into their operations, always in minor roles, always in positions of limited authority. They had not noticed how essential those minor roles had become. Admiral Wade sat alone in her quarters aboard the flagship Eternal Law. She was the highest-ranking human in the collective military, a position she had earned through decades of service and sacrifice. Now guards stood outside her door, and her communication access had been restricted to monitored channels only. She was 63 years old. She had given her entire adult life to proving that humans deserved their place among the stars. And she had just learned that everything she worked for meant nothing to those who held the real power. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on an unmonitored frequency. Wade recognized the signal pattern immediately. Park had taught her this system months ago, when they first began to suspect that the implants were not working as intended. "Admiral," Lisa's voice came through clearly, "we need you." Wade closed her eyes and let the moment wash over her. She had spent her career building bridges between species, earning trust through obedience and patience. Now she faced a choice that would define everything she had ever been. "Tell me what is happening," she said. Lisa explained everything: the failing implants, discovery, plans, the coming demonstration that would destroy a human vessel as an example to the others. Wade listened without interruption, her face growing harder with each revelation. "They were never going to accept us," she said when Lisa finished. "No matter how well we served, no matter how loyal we proved ourselves, we were always just tools to them, useful as long as we obeyed." "Yes, but that does not mean we have to become their enemies. We can still show them another way." Wade stood and walked to her window. Outside, the stars burned with cold indifference. She had loved those stars since childhood, had dreamed of traveling among them, had sacrificed everything to make that dream real. Now she had to decide what that dream truly meant. "What do you need from me?" Lisa's response came quick and certain. "Delay. Use your authority to slow down whatever is planning. Buy us time to organize. And then we prove that humans who cannot be controlled can still be trusted." Wade straightened her shoulders and felt something she had not felt in years. Not hope exactly, but something close to it: purpose. "I will do what I can." The next 72 hours saw Admiral Wade deploy every political skill she had developed over 4 decades of service. She demanded reviews of the evidence against humans. She requested formal hearings in accordance with collective regulations. She filed objections and appeals and procedural challenges that clogged the administrative systems and forced delays at every step. Meanwhile, Park worked miracles of his own. The compliance implants had been designed to monitor human activity and report any suspicious behavior. Discovered that the same implants could be to carry encrypted messages. The very devices meant to control humans became their secret communication network. Lieutenant Danny proved essential to this effort. His piloting skills had always been exceptional, but his real talent lay in mathematics. He developed an encryption system that hid messages inside the normal data flow of the implants, invisible to collective monitoring but perfectly readable to any human who knew the pattern. Within 2 days, every human in the fleet could communicate securely with every other human. They shared information, coordinated responses, and planned for whatever came next. All of this happened under the watchful eyes of their captors, who saw only compliant prisoners waiting for judgment. Commander of the fleet made contact on the third day. He was an unusual one who had served alongside humans for over a decade. Unlike most of his kind, he had come to see humans not as subjects to be controlled, but as allies to be valued. "I am taking a considerable risk by contacting you," said through a channel that had secured. Lisa accepted the communication in a storage room far from collective surveillance. Why do it then? Because what plans is wrong. Paused, and when he spoke again his voice carried something like shame. "I have watched humans for years. You work harder than you must. You care about those under your command. You question orders not out of defiance but out of conscience. These are not the traits of dangerous rebels. These are the traits of people worth trusting. What is planning? Your patrol vessel has been designated for destruction. The official justification will be that your crew attempted to escape confinement. The real purpose is to terrify every other human into submission." Lisa felt cold settle in her chest but kept her voice steady. "When?" "Tomorrow. The Third Fleet will surround your vessel at coordinates in neutral space. You will be given one chance to surrender your crew to permanent detention. When you refuse, as expects you will, the fleet will open fire. And if we do not refuse, if we surrender?" Was silent for a long moment. "Then your crew will be taken to research facilities for study. Wishes to understand how to modify the implants for human biology. The experiments would be invasive and permanent." Lisa understood. There was no good option, only different kinds of ending. "Thank you for warning us," she said. "I wish I could do more, but I am only one officer and the collective is vast." Lisa smiled, though could not see it. "One person choosing to do right is how everything changes. Your people taught us that 50,000 years ago. Perhaps you have forgotten." The next morning, Lisa called her crew together in the cargo bay. 47 humans stood before her, their faces showing the strain of days confined and uncertain. She looked at each of them in turn, remembering the moments they had shared, the missions they had completed, the trust they had built. "Tomorrow, the collective fleet will surround this vessel and demand our surrender. If we comply, we face imprisonment and experimentation. If we refuse, they will destroy us." No one spoke, no one needed to. "I will not order anyone to stay. Any crew member who wishes to surrender individually may do so without judgment. I will provide whatever cover I can." Danny stepped forward first. "With respect, Commander, you can keep your cover. I did not come to space to live on my knees." One by one, others stepped forward. Park, Cole, Gary, every single human in that cargo bay chose to stand with their commander. Lisa felt tears threaten but held them back. "Then we face tomorrow together, and we show them what humans are made of." Across the fleet, Admiral Wade received word of the planned attack and made her own choice. She contacted every human-crewed vessel in range, passing along coordinates and instructions through the secret network that had built. "If we are going to make a stand," she told her captains, "we make it together." By dawn, 17 human-crewed vessels had slipped their confinement and were converging on the coordinates in neutral space. Not to fight, but to stand. Not to die, but to be seen. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. A species that could not be controlled, choosing freely to face its fate together. The Third Fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation. 60 warships of the Galactic Collective surrounded a small patch of empty space, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral watched from the bridge of the eternal law with his multiple eyes reflecting the cold light of distant stars. High Arbiter stood beside him, having traveled from Prime to witness this moment personally. The human problem would end today, one way or another. "The target vessel has arrived," an officer reported. "Commander Grant's patrol ship is holding position at the designated coordinates." "She came willingly to her own execution," observed, curious. said nothing. His attention was fixed on the sensor displays, where a single human vessel floated alone against the vastness of space. Soon it would be debris, and the other humans would learn the cost of existing outside collective control. Then the sensors detected new arrivals. 17 more vessels dropped out of hyperspace, forming a loose formation around Lisa Grant's ship. Human-crewed vessels from across the fleet, all converging on this single point in space. They carried no heavy weapons. Their shields were raised, but their targeting systems remained passive. They had not come to fight. They had come to stand. "What is this?" demanded. Before anyone could answer, a communication signal reached every vessel in the system. Lisa Grant's voice filled the bridge of the eternal law, transmitted on all frequencies for everyone to hear. "This is Commander Lisa Grant of the human patrol vessel Endurance. I am broadcasting to all collective ships and to the Council itself. What I have to say concerns the future of every species in this galaxy." Gestured sharply, "Block that signal." "I cannot," the communications officer replied. "The transmission is being routed through our own compliance monitoring network. They are using the implants themselves as broadcast relays." Lisa continued speaking, her voice calm and clear. 3 months ago, every human in the collective military received neural compliance implants. These devices were meant to ensure our obedience, to remove our ability to make choices that conflicted with orders. They were meant to make us controllable. On vessels throughout the fleet, officers of every species listened. Some had always questioned the compliance system but never dared speak against it. Others had never thought to question anything. All of them heard the human woman's words. The implants failed, not because we sabotaged them, but because human biology is fundamentally incompatible with compliance technology. Our brains evolved to resist external control. We cannot be forced to obey. We can only choose. Park transmitted supporting data through the same network. Neural scans, biological analyses, own research findings. The evidence was undeniable. "You fear us now because we cannot be controlled, but I ask you to consider something. For 3 months we have served alongside you without functional implants. We have followed orders. We have completed missions. We have protected our of every species. We did these things not because we were forced, but because we chose to, because cooperation does not require control." Admiral Wade's voice joined the broadcast from her position aboard the Eternal Law. "I have served the collective for 40 years. I have given my life to building trust between species. Everything I have done freely. My compliance implant has been failing since the day it was installed. I followed orders because they were worth following. I served because service gave my life meaning. No device made me loyal. I chose loyalty." Silence hung over the fleet. His face had gone pale with fury, but he found himself unable to speak. Around him, officers exchanged uncertain looks. Then Commander stepped forward on the bridge of the Eternal Law. He was taking a risk that could end his career and possibly his life. He did not care. "I have served alongside humans for 11 years, said. "I have watched them bleed for this collective. I have seen them sacrifice for who treated them as lesser beings. They did not need implants to make them trustworthy. They were trustworthy because that is who they are." Turned to face directly. "Perhaps the collective has relied on compliance technology for so long that we have forgotten what real trust looks like. Perhaps we needed a species that could not be controlled to remind us." The council chamber on Prime erupted in debate. Council member had been listening to the broadcast along with his colleagues, and now he rose to speak. "For 50,000 years we have maintained order through compliance implants. We told ourselves it was necessary for peace. But what is peace without freedom? What is cooperation without choice?" He looked at his fellow council members with ancient eyes. "The humans cannot be controlled, and perhaps that is exactly what we need. A voice that speaks freely. A presence that reminds us what we have lost." The debate continued for hours while the fleets remained frozen in space. Lisa and her crew waited in their small vessel, surrounded by the overwhelming firepower of the collective, sustained only by hope and the knowledge that they had spoken truth. Finally, the communication channels crackled with a new voice. It was, but the fury had drained from his words, replaced by something that might have been weariness. The Council has reached a decision. Human personnel will be exempt from compliance implant requirements. They will remain part of the collective under a new agreement based on voluntary service. Their ships will stand down and return to normal operations. Lisa closed her eyes and let relief wash through her. They had survived. More than that, they had changed something. The following weeks brought changes that no one had anticipated. The human example sparked questions among other species. Young began asking why compliance implants were necessary. Philosophers debated whether peace built on control was truly peace at all, calculated the efficiency losses caused by suppressing individual initiative. On a bright morning 6 months later, Lisa Grant stood in the council chamber on Prime. She wore a new uniform bearing symbols that had never existed before. Human ambassador to the Galactic Collective, the first of her kind. Park stood beside her as her aide, his young face carrying the weight of everything they had survived together. Admiral Wade watched from the gallery with tears in her eyes. Commander attended in his new position as liaison to human affairs, a role created specifically to bridge the gap between species. Approached Lisa after the ceremony concluded. The ancient moved slowly, but his eyes held sharp intelligence. "You have changed things," he said. "More than you know. Other species are questioning the compliance systems now. Some are asking to have their implants removed." Lisa nodded slowly. "We did not intend to start a revolution." "No, you simply reminded us what we had forgotten. That beings who cannot be controlled can still choose to cooperate. That trust freely given is stronger than obedience forced by technology." Paused, and something like a smile crossed his crystalline features. 50,000 years of order, and we needed a species of stubborn, defiant, impossibly free creatures to show us what we had lost. That night, Lisa stood at a window overlooking the glowing cities of Prime, joined her in comfortable silence. They did not need to speak. They had survived the impossible and emerged with something better than survival. Somewhere out there among the stars, humanity continued its journey. A young species in an ancient galaxy, free not because they had won a war but because they had proven that freedom and cooperation could exist together. They had shown that the kill switch the collective sought had never existed, and that its absence was not a flaw but a gift. The stars burned on in their eternal silence, indifferent to the small miracle that had occurred beneath them. But Lisa Grant knew the truth. Sometimes the universe changed not through great battles but through simple choices, through people who refused to surrender what made them human, through the stubborn, impossible, wonderful fact that some minds could never be chained. And that, in the end, was enough.